It started as an ordinary day for an elderly woman running errands in her neighborhood, until a routine interaction with a local officer turned into something far darker. Witnesses were stunned as the officer's behavior escalated, raising questions about the abuse of power and the treatment of vulnerable individuals. Little did he know, this woman's son, armed with resilience and an unshakable sense of justice, wouldn't let the incident fade into silence. What began as an act of intimidation would unravel a deeper story of systemic corruption, leaving many asking, how often does this happen when no one is watching? As the son fights for accountability, their journey shines a light on the importance of speaking up and holding authority figures to higher standards. Stay tuned to hear how their courage sparked a ripple effect, demanding answers and change from a system many believed was untouchable. As word spread about the officer's actions, it quickly became clear that this wasn't an isolated incident. People in the community began sharing their own stories, whispers of unfair treatment, racial profiling, and a culture of silence among those meant to protect. But for many, it wasn't just about one officer. It was about a broken system where power seemed to go unchecked, and those who dared to speak up were often ignored or silenced. The son, still reeling from the attack on his mother, knew something had to be done. With a steady resolve, he began digging into the officer's history, determined to uncover the truth. But every step he took, the walls of secrecy grew higher. Documents were hidden, witnesses were hesitant, and the truth seemed more elusive with each passing day. He could feel the weight of the system pushing back, but he wasn't ready to back down. As the investigation deepened, the son realized that his fight was much larger than just seeking justice for his mother. He was up against a system where power wasn't just abused by a single officer, but by a whole network of corrupt practices that had taken root over the years. He reached out to former officers, some retired, some disgruntled, hoping to find someone willing to speak out. But many were afraid. Fear of retaliation, loss of job, and the hidden costs of crossing the line were all too real. The closer he got to the truth, the more isolated he became. Meanwhile, the elderly woman, once vibrant and independent, found herself haunted by the event. Her health began to deteriorate, both mentally and physically, as the trauma of the encounter weighed heavily on her. It wasn't just the pain from the attack. It was the realization that the system she had trusted could so easily turn against her. Behind the scenes, a small but determined group of activists began to rally behind the son, encouraging him to keep pushing forward. They'd seen it all before, a system that protected its own at all costs, leaving the innocent to suffer. The pressure to stand up was immense, but as the son grew more determined, he could feel the walls closing in. The more he uncovered, the more dangerous it became. Each new lead felt like it could be the breakthrough, but it also felt like it might be his last. What if, in the end, the system was too powerful to break? The tension in the air was thick as the son moved closer to uncovering the truth. Every step forward felt like a gamble, as the walls around him seemed to tighten with each passing day. He'd received threats, anonymous calls, strange figures lurking outside his apartment, and unsettling messages warning him to stop. But he couldn't turn back now. His mother's pain was etched in his mind, and the faces of those who suffered silently under the same corrupt system fueled his determination. The local media began to take notice, but not without hesitation. Some outlets were eager to share the story, but others seemed reluctant, unsure of the consequences. Was the power of the system too great to confront, or was it just too dangerous to challenge? The son knew the answers were out there, buried in the shadows of the department's darkest secrets. But he had to be careful. Too many people had already warned him that this path could cost him everything. The breakthrough came when an old photograph surfaced, showing the officer in question at a private gathering, surrounded by figures with ties to organized crime. It was the kind of connection that could tear the entire department apart, but the evidence was fragile. If this got into the wrong hands, it could disappear forever. And with every passing day, the pressure mounted. Would this be the moment he finally exposed the corruption, or would he become just another casualty in a system built to protect its own? The clock was ticking, and the truth was just within reach. Just when the son thought he was closing in on the truth, an unexpected twist sent everything spiraling into chaos. Late one night, he received an encrypted email containing a recording, something he hadn't anticipated. It was the voice of his own mother, pleading with the officer during the incident. At first, he thought it was a strange mistake or a cruel trick, but when he listened closer, the words hit him like a punch to the gut. She wasn't just a victim of the officer's aggression. In the recording, it became clear that she had known him personally. The officer had once been a friend of the family, someone she trusted. How could this be? The shock of this revelation rocked him to his core. Why hadn't she told him? Was she too scared? Or was there something more sinister going on that she wasn't willing to admit? His mind raced as he tried to make sense of the new information. This revelation changed everything. Now the son wasn't just fighting for justice for his mother. He was up against a system where personal ties and corruption had woven a tangled web of deceit that reached far beyond the officer in question. The deeper he dug, the darker the story became. Could he still expose the truth without risking his own life? And what would happen when the connections between his family and the very people he was trying to take down were revealed? As the stakes grew higher, one thing was certain: the son couldn't back down now. But the real question was, who could he trust when even his own family's past seemed shrouded in secrecy? The son, driven by a mix of confusion, anger, and determination, confronted his mother about the recording. Her response was quiet but resolute. She confessed that years ago, she had been involved in a brief but intense relationship with the officer. It was a secret she had kept hidden for decades, believing it was a part of her past that would never come to light. But as the years went on, she realized that he wasn't the man she thought he was, and their paths diverged. She had never expected him to rise to a position of power, let alone become the officer he was now. She kept silent, fearing that exposing the truth would only cause more harm to her family. With this new understanding, the son knew the final step was clear. He had to release the evidence. He took everything he had, the photograph, the recording, and the testimonies of witnesses, and sent them to a trusted journalist. The truth was about to be exposed, and there was no turning back. The system would have to reckon with its corruption. But just as the journalist was preparing to go public, an unexpected phone call changed everything. The officer, knowing that the end was near, called the son directly. "You don't know who you're dealing with," the officer warned, his voice calm but laced with a chilling threat. "If you release that information, you won't just destroy me, you'll destroy everything. Your family, your friends, everyone you care about. You're not ready for what's coming." For a moment, the son hesitated, the weight of the threat sinking in. But then he remembered why he had started this fight. It wasn't just about exposing a corrupt officer. It was about exposing the truth for everyone who had suffered in silence. Without a second thought, he pressed send. The story went live. Within hours, news outlets across the country picked it up, and the scandal rocked the entire city. But just as it seemed like justice was within reach, the final twist hit. The officer, now facing investigation, was found dead in his apartment under suspicious circumstances. The official cause of death was ruled an apparent suicide. The son knew, deep down, that this wasn't the end. The system had struck back, silencing the very person who could have exposed the truth. The fight was far from over. As the son walked away from the chaos, he realized that uncovering the truth had come at a cost. But sometimes, standing up for justice meant paying the price. He would continue the fight, knowing that the battle for accountability was only beginning. In the aftermath, the community was left in shock, grappling with the revelations that had rocked the foundation of their trust. Though the officer's death may have closed one chapter, the investigation continued, now with more eyes on the department than ever before. The son's actions had sparked a movement. Activists, families, and concerned citizens rallied for reform, demanding accountability from those in power. The elderly woman, while still scarred by the trauma, found a new sense of peace knowing that her son's fight hadn't been in vain. She had kept her secret for years, but the truth was finally out. The son, too, found a sense of purpose amid the chaos. He knew the fight was far from over, but he had awakened a community to the injustice that had been hidden in plain sight. In the end, the story wasn't just about one corrupt officer. It was about a system that could be changed, as long as someone had the courage to challenge it.